In the 21st century, almost all parts of the world have been relying on technology. In business world, people can even enter into contract by online. How cool is that? Most people are now contracting through emails, phone calls, and video calls. However, how do I know if the contract has concluded through online? So, now we will present to you on the role of Khiyar al-Majlis in sale contract. Enjoy!
Assalamu alaikum. I am Elena binti Ibrahim. Let me start our group's presentation by introducing to you what Khiyar is. From its direct Arabic translation, the definition of Khiyar means to choose between two things or to wish to choose between them. In the literal sense, Khiyar means a choice, preference, or option. Al-Khiyar is a term in its legal definition. It refers to the option each party to a contract of sales has to rescind the contract within a certain period after the conclusion of the deal. According to the Islamic law, there are at least 17 different kinds of khiyar. However, the type of khiyar that we are about to present today is the khiyar al-Majlis. Khiyar al-Majlis refers to the option of contractual cession. It is the condition which allows the parties to withdraw from the contract while they are still at the place where the transaction took place. Under this principle, the contracting parties have the legal right to rescind or ratify the agreement provided they are still at the contractual session. Accordingly, this option would be available to the buyer and seller, where their rights should be exercised before the contract is concluded. Hence, when both parties have departed from the area, the rights of Khiyar would then lapse and they would have no rights to change it under Khiyar al-Majlis.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Shafika binti Abdul Rahman, matric number 273306, and I will be explaining regarding the legality of Khiyar al-Majlis, which was founded based on a few hadith. The first hadith, which was reported by Ibn Omar, the Prophet Muhammad said, if two men conduct a sale contract, each one of them has the right of choice until they part or until one of them gives the choice to the other one. If and they concluded the sale, then the sale is then confirmed. This hadith was narrated by al-Bukhari and Muslim. From this hadith, it can be seen that there exist applications of Khiyar al-Majlis in Islamic sale of contracts. And based on this hadith, the contract of sale will be valid after parties involved in the contract give each other choices in concluding the contract of sale. The second one was reported by Amr ibn Shu'aib, which reports from his father's report of his grandfather that the Prophet Muhammad said the two parties have the choice until they part. This hadith was narrated by Hassan. This means that the parties to a contract have the choice to cancel a contract until both of them part from the contract. The last one was hadith by Hakim ibn Hizam, which reports that the Prophet Muhammad said that the two sale parties have the choice until they are truthful and clear. Their sale will be blessed. If they hide secrets and tell lies or deceive, the blessing of their sale will be annihilated. This was narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. From this hadith, it requires the parties to a contract to be truthful and shall not deceive each other so that the contract will be blessed and have no elements of secrecy.
Moving on, let's dive into a comparison between Khiyar al-Majlis and Majlis al-Aqad. Before we jump into the differences, let's take a look on what is Aqad. Aqad is a contract between two parties that contain ijab and qabul. Aqad happen to ensure that it clarifies and show willingness of party that partake in it. And what is Majlis al-Aqad? Majlis al-Aqad is a place where those who involved attend to perform their sirah. However, before the parties can complete their sirah performance, there are few things that need to be fulfilled, which are: both parties must be present. Second, the tenure must be transparent. Third, there no coercion or undue influence shown by either of the party. And lastly, first party must not withdraw from the agreement before the second party accept the offer. Now, after the explanation on the definition, here are the differences on the two Sharia principle Islamic transaction based on the reading made by us. Majlis al-Aqad versus Khiyar al-Majlis. So for Majlis al-Aqad, the differences is that the performance of sirah must be done instantly. Second, the contract details is written and stated clearly. Thirdly, first party must not withdraw the agreement before the second party accept the offer. And for Khiyar al-Majlis, the sirah must be completed not more than 3 days. And second, there is a high risk of falsification can happen. And lastly, before the contract can be concluded, those who partake in Khiyar al-Majlis need to obtain Ittihad al-Majlis.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day. My name is Shazat Atira with metric number 272696. We'll be talking about perspective of Khiyar al-Majlis from Islamic jurists. There are juristic agreements and disagreements in regards to the legality of Khiyar al-Majlis. From the Hanafi school of thought, it can be said that once the offer and acceptance has been made, the contract agreement is concluded and binding. Therefore, the school of thought opined that the Khiyar al-Majlis is not established at the very first place, and there is no option for the contracting parties to enjoy the withdrawal before parting. This perspective was based on several arguments and references. Firstly, by referring to Surah An-Nisa verses 29, which mentioned, "You who believe, do not consume on another's property by false means, but only by means of mutually agreed trade. That conveyed a contract shall be concluded by consent, where true offer and acceptance." This school also argued that if the parties depend on Khiyar, he or she denied the right of the contracting parties to fulfill the contract because the contract is complete once both of the parties consent to it. Secondly, by referring to the hadith stated by al-Bukhari and Abu Dawud, which mentioned that Muslims are bound to the conditions stipulated in the contract, having the option to revoke or withdraw after the conclusion of the agreed contract will invalidate others' rights, and such action is not valid as according to the references discussed. The Maliki school of thought also had the same view as Hanafi, where this school opposed the Khiyar al-Majlis. This school argued that the Khiyar al-Majlis is an option with unknown element because the duration is uncertain. As a result, it is as if someone stipulates an unknown choice, which is equal to extravagant ignorance in the contract, which is strictly prohibited in Islamic law. By referring to the hadith recited by Abu Dawud, the Prophet said, "One party shall not leave his or her partner, lest he dismisses the contract." This hadith indicated that after a complete offer and acceptance, the parties cannot revoke except through dismissal of contract. Furthermore, the Maliki also refused to accept Khiyar al-Majlis because it was an uncommon practice and contrary to the established principle in Madinah. On the other hand, the Shafi'i school of thought opined that the Khiyar al-Majlis is effective and valid. The reason behind this option is to give ample time and room for the parties to think before any decision can be made in regards to the contract. As a result, it will give justice to both of the contracting parties while preventing them to regret their decision later. By referring to the hadith recited by al-Bukhari, which stated that both parties in a business transactions have the right of option as long as they have not separated, except if it is an optional sale. This school argued that so long the parties are not separated from each other, they have the rights of making option. The Shafi'i also argue in another narration recited by al-Nisaburi, which mentioned that, or as long as any one of them tells the other, do choose make a khiyar. Mean to say, if there is an expression of offer and acceptance and both of the parties are still in the majlis, the contract is yet to be enforced. This will entitle them to either withdraw or to continue with the contract. The Hanbali school of thought also agreed with the Shafi'i by stating that Khiyar al-Majlis is effective and valid. They argued by referring to the narration recited by Ibn Umar, whereby the Prophet said, both parties have the right to enjoy the option as long as they are not separated. Ibn Umar also narrated that the practice of Khiyar al-Majlis was the common practice in a contract of sale during the prophetic era, so long as the contracting parties have not been separated.
Next, I'm going to explain regarding the application of Khiyar al-Majlis in a few situations. The application of Khiyar al-Majlis can be seen in a contract concluded over a telephone. By contracting over the telephone, the speech of the speaker can be delivered effectively. This is because the contracting parties will be able to listen to each other well and clearly without having to face confusion, such as change of words from either parties to the contract. The difference is that the medium of the conversation is a device that can transfer sound and media simultaneously. Thus, even when the offer and acceptance was made over telephone in a right way, the contract will still be concluded and considered as a valid contract. There shall be no problem as to the validity of the concluded contract due to the parties who are unable to see each other due to distance, as long as both parties have the choice to perform the transaction or even cancelling it. In contracts made over the telephone, both parties converse and listen to each other at the same time without any time delay. As a result, the contract is regarded to be properly concluded and at the time of the conclusion, just as it is when both parties are present in the session. It is also to be noted that after the phone call has ended, the session will be stopped and the ability to cancel the contract for both parties will be invalid and ineffective. Furthermore, in the situation of concluding contracts over the phone, Khiyar al-Majlis will expire if any of the parties does something that signals his dissatisfaction with the contract, even though the telephone conversation between them still continues. Also, if any of them leaves the session even though the conversation is still going on, the Khiyar al-Majlis is ended, unless the departure is for a reason related to the contract's fulfillment. Next, the application of Khiyar al-Majlis can also be seen when an offer is made publicly. Since an offer can be made privately, it can also be made publicly via television, radio, and other media. Furthermore, offers are now made to public at supermarkets and shopping malls via flyers, leaflets, booklets, and other means. This method will still be valid and lawful as long as there is no breach of Sharia requirements, such as it is free from elements of ambiguity, usury, and many more. This means will allow the customers to choose whether to accept the offer or not within a specified period of time. As a result, once a customer purchases a product, they pays for it and then leaves the market, the contract is complete and irreversible and the Khiyar al-Majlis will expire.
In conclusion, here al-Majlis do benefit all parties, although some of the Islamic jurists oppose to the option of withdrawal before parting. This is because in this century, the world has relied too much on technology that we believe here al-Majlis plays a very important role in ensuring that all parties that enter into online sale contracts adhere to Islamic Sharia. Another reason is that online sale contracts is different from that of contracts that has been done by face-to-face. This is because the offer and acceptance must be expressed clearly through the process. Another important thing to be noted is that Shafi'i view will be applicable in online sale contracts, where it concludes that the process of online sale contracts will be in accordance to its tradition and custom. This is very important to be studied so that all parties can determine the timeline where Khiyar al-Majlis will be expired. Lastly, it is advisable that this option be studied as to avoid further inconvenience from happening in the future, notwithstanding the medium that the contract in question is concluded. That's all from us. Thank you.